You are listening to the 2 and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
Punt, 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 punt. Interception, field goal.
Which, hey, let's be honest here. The interception is the best end to a drive they've had up to this point.
Grab some poutine and a double-double. It's time for the 2 and Out CFL podcast.
Now they have to kick it out, and they do!
Every week, Travis Currah.
Does anybody still care about this podcast?
And Brazilian Ty.
Punters are people, too.
Talk fantasy football, bring you the latest in CFL news, and sprinkle in a little bit of nonsense.
Are you kidding? This is unbelievable!
Ready, set, hunt!
And we are part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. I'm Travis Currah, joined by Brazilian Ty. And I had a first over the weekend, singing "O Canada" in front of a crowd of over 300 people.
And how many people bled from their ears?
Dude, this is what happened. I was the MC for an event put on by Veterans Voices of Canada. I love this organization. They do a Flags of Remembrance ceremony. They have one in Sylvan Lake, Alberta, Windsor, Ontario, and Sydney, Nova Scotia. And there are 128 Canadian flags on display to commemorate the 128,000 Canadian men and women, military, RCMP, and first responders killed or missing in action since the Boer War up until now. So it's a great event. It just makes your Canadian heart swell when you see all of these flags. And I was the MC for this event. And as the event is opening, the pipe and drum band is playing the pipes. They're coming down. The color party is coming down, and I realize that the anthem singer, I haven't seen her. I haven't spoken to her, and I know who she is, but she didn't make the event. And I'm talking to the organizer. I'm like, I don't see her. So he runs.
Wait. Did you Tanya Harding her?
Dude.
Like, is this your big break?
Well, I don't think there were some news cameras there. So maybe there is some. But if you are in Windsor, near Sylvan Lake or Sydney, Nova Scotia, go check these flags out. They're going to be on display until after Remembrance Day. So the pipe and drum band is playing, and this is happening, and the anthem is in 45 seconds. So the organizer of the event goes to the pipe and drum band, and once they're done playing, he asks them, do you have O Canada ready? Have you prepared for this? No. So he comes back to me. You're singing. You're leading. Okay.
I would have ran away so fast.
I had no time to think about it. I kind of did give a disclaimer about what was going to happen. I led the crowd in the singing of O Canada. It was not pretty. I could hear myself in the speakers. I held the microphone probably near my belly button. But we got through it together, and I can now say that is on my resume.
I wouldn't put it on there.
Yeah, I think I'll leave it off.
It's not lying if you don't put it on there. It's just omitted.
Join 2 and Out for CFL Fantasy and CFL Pick'em, and show Currah and Ty what you got.
They are who we thought they were!
Just click cflfantasy.tsn.ca.
Enough of talking about it. There has to be consequences.
And pick'em.cfl.ca.
What a week of football it was. It starts Friday night. There was a doubleheader. The Calgary Stampeders beat the Toronto Argonauts 23-16. Couple takeaways here. the Stampeders basically just controlled the game. Time of possession was nearly 35 minutes. The Argos couldn't really get anything done, really. But I think the big one coming out of the game is the Stampeders lose a running back, Kadeem Carey, again. It's been a position that's been cursed for the Stampeders all season long. And after Don Jackson's breakout last year, we kind of thought they had a franchise guy. But Jackson has had injuries this year. Carey has shown flashes, but has also been hurt. I think that maybe they're going to have to go back to Jackson now, because I think he has been ready to go for a couple of weeks. And I think Jackson's going to really need to shine to close the season out here.
And it's just another example of Calgary showing the depth that they have in this organization. And Terry Williams rushed the ball 3 times for 28 yards, got in the end zone, had 46 yards in the return game as well, and had 14 receiving yards. So he's multifaceted, and if Don Jackson comes back, there's still lots of room for Terry Williams to produce in this lineup as well. And it just, if they can share a workload, I think Don Jackson would get the bulk of the carries. It's just more of a weapon for the Stampeders to use in that aspect where they can switch things up, and they have the depth to do it.
The Stampeders also came into this game with a very inexperienced receiving core, and Bo Levi Mitchell approached it by throwing it to Eric Rogers nonstop. 17 targets. I honestly don't know if, since we've started this show, if I've seen a receiver with that many targets in a game.
I think SJ Green, I want to say last year, was up around 20 at some point.
Maybe he did have a 19 or 20 target game.
But I'll tell you what, when we're done, I will look it up and I will put it on Twitter. But I feel like 20 or 21 has been around, and I think I've seen it. But 17 is still a ridiculous amount. 8 catches, 119 yards, which gives him 19.9 fantasy points. He didn't find the end zone, but still a very productive day. And Bo Levi Mitchell spread the ball around quite a bit when you look at the targets. But Eric Rogers getting 17 targets is huge in that offense that tends to spread the ball around. But Bo Levi going back to Old Faithful there, just somebody he's really comfortable throwing to.
He did have a couple costly drops in this one, but Bo was also forcing it to him, just throwing it to him in double coverage. And some incredible catches were happening, some weren't happening, which I won't blame Rogers for that, but they had to have an inexperienced receiving core because there was no Reggie Bagleton. Markeith Amble's still sidelined. Richie Sendani was sidelined in this one. And then continuing to stay on the 6-game injured list is Juwan Breskison and Kamar Jordan, who has started sort of running at practice. We'll see if he gets into a game before the end of the season. He could be a fantasy hero as the season comes to a close here. But the Stampeders, they're able to make this depth work. They took 0 penalties in the first half. 0. That's really hard to wrap my head around.
We look at what's going on in the NFL right now where every holding call is being called, it seems. And I know we say, and everybody says, there's holding on every play. The refs have to decide which one's the call and which one's to not, whether they're blatant or egregious and stuff like that. But for a team to go with 0 penalties in a half of football is something to marvel at, really. And I know it's happened. It's happened before this year. But, when it does happen, it is a huge aspect of the game because the team is not losing any yards or giving up yards on the defensive side of the ball.
They ended up taking 5 for 55 in the second half. The Argos overall had 10 for 96. But I think we're officially at the point of the season where the refs are leaving the flags in their pockets. There was a ton of rough play happening this week, and we'll get into some of it where there were just no calls. And that's fine. because I think it helps the game flow better.
I think it's fine to a point.
Right, to a point.
And I think we know where we're going with that, but we'll get into that in the other games.
Yeah.
But like you said, putting the flags away and letting them play, it's 6-1, half a dozen the other, because you see it in every other sport where officials don't want to decide the game.
Yep.
But by not making those calls, they are deciding the game. But if it's going to be called the same both ways, then I'm okay with it.
You do have to be careful. You can't let a game get away from you, because there was a play in the Ticats-Eskimos games. I think it was Simone Lawrence, where an offensive lineman kept driving his legs after the play and just slammed him into the ground. I think in any other game, that gets 15 yards unnecessary roughness, but I don't know if the ref saw 21 and said, we'll let this
Karma's
one go.
a bitch.
So obviously Eric Rogers was the leading receiver for the Stampeders, but let's look at every receiver that had a catch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different receivers were targeted. 9 had catches, and I have to tell you, we brought up Ante Milanovic leader last game. With Carey leaving the game, I had hope. He ended up getting 5 carries, 16 yards, and 1 catch for 3 yards. If he broke some of those, you would have had to quit the podcast, which would have made me sad, but at the same time, happy, because Milanovic leader just had a big game.
Yeah, but then who would do all the legwork that you don't do?
Yeah. Nobody.
Like, I mean, if you do a lot for the preview shows, I'll give you that. But I mean, when it comes to the Sunday show, a lot of the legwork is me. Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not going to correct you.
All right, then.
The Argos spread the ball around as well. Armani Edwards was the leading receiver for the Argos, 80 yards on 5 catches.
Not only did they spread the ball to the receivers, they spread the ball around under center as well, and neither of it worked.
DW had 10 targets, 5 for 52, and a touchdown. But I think the big story is McLeod Bethel Thompson couldn't get anything going against the Stampeder defense, which a part of me just thinks it's a bad situation. When the Stampeder defense is on, there's a good chance you're not going to get anything done. So Bethel Thompson was pulled. James Franklin comes in. They had the same amount of completions, 12 of them. Franklin had 16 attempts. Bethel Thompson had 19. MBT had the interception, and Franklin had the touchdown. So that's the difference in the passer efficiency there, I guess. I don't think this really showed a difference between the two quarterbacks at all.
Neither quarterback was able to cement themselves as being the starter next week.
No.
I think James Franklin protecting the ball a little better, not throwing an interception, might give him a leg up. But we've seen Bethel Thompson put up huge numbers this year. So, I mean, it kind of evens out that way, I think. Fantasy-wise, I mean, James Franklin had 11.4. And, in a half of football, okay, not bad, especially against Calgary. But to only throw the ball 16 times when you're, it's the quarterback situation in Toronto. We thought it was figured out. McLeod Bethel Thompson has the one bad half, and they pull him, and I get it. But if he's your starting quarterback, you got to let him work through this. Do you not?
I think so. Now I think that they let Franklin play the season out and just see what they have.
If they're going to do that, give it to Dakota Prukop or Michael O'Connor.
I think that's what they should do. That's if they want Franklin to be a part of this franchise going into next year. I don't know if they do.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if they want either one of these guys around. The way that, and I know Bethel Thompson has got a lot of playing time lately, but to pull him after going 12 of 19 for 86 and a pick, I mean, you're showing that you have zero faith in him being able to get anything done. And I mean, James Franklin comes in and throws for 70 more yards or 60 more yards, but in a touchdown, he still doesn't play that much better.
No, he didn't.
So, I mean, let's see what you actually have at the quarterback position, and maybe one of these 23, 24-year-olds will perform, and then you have a quarterback for the foreseeable future and stability at that position.
If there was a game for the Argos to steal, this was it. They would have caught up to Ottawa, and they only would have been 3 behind Edmonton. I know either way it was a long shot, but now it's probably time to just kiss it goodbye and see what you have in the young guns. That's what I think that the Argos should do. But the Stampeders win a game that they needed to win to stay in a home playoff spot in that West Division that just continues to stay crazy between the Bombers, Stampeders, and Rough Riders. Let's move on to the second half of that Friday night doubleheader at Commonwealth Stadium. It was Ricky Ray night, but the Tiger Cats spoiled that one. The Argos had Ricky Ray night earlier this season. The Ticats popped 64 points on the Argos. And then the Eskimos have Ricky Ray night, and the Ticats, they win by a field goal that ended up going off the upright. But it looked like it was going to be a night that the Ticats were going to pop 60 on the Eskimos because before the end of the first quarter, it was 21-0. That came on a 41-yard touchdown to Marcus Tucker, a 76-yard touchdown to Braylon Addison. This looked like it was going to get away from the Eskimos really fast with Logan Kilgore as the starting quarterback.
Those 3 touchdown drives that the Ticats had, that were consecutive touchdown drives, totaled 6 plays. 3 plays for the first, 1 play for the second, 2 plays for the third. After their second touchdown, I went upstairs, grabbed something to eat. I came back downstairs, went to the bathroom, came back to TV. It was 21-0, and I texted you. I said, "What the hell just happened?"
And then it looked like they put that number 15 jersey on Ricky Ray and got him out there for the second half, and all of a sudden, the Eskimos were back in it. Game was tied, but poor clock management, not being able to get another first down, gave the Tiger Cats the ball with, around 45 seconds left. They did what they needed to do, and Liram Hairelahu ended up kicking the winning field goal. Wow. I was kind of worried about what the Eskimos were going to look like here, but still, at the same time, the defense that we saw at the beginning of the year is not there for Edmonton anymore, and they've got a crazy defensive line. Alex Bazzi got into his first game in a long time. He did make some plays, but I think the biggest play that really got the Eskimos really back into this game and kept the momentum going was Matthew Betts making his debut, had a quarterback sack, a forced fumble, and that had the Eskimos with all the momentum in the world. But props to Dane Evans and the Ticats. That didn't scare them off, and they stayed composed, and they left Alberta with 1 win in 2 weeks, which I think that's about as good as you can hope for. I mean, if you come into Alberta and sweep both teams, that is amazing. If you leave with 1, I think you did okay.
This isn't the NHL 3 years ago. You're not going to come in and get 4 points.
Yeah, it's not an Alberta vacation.
No, not anymore. I mean, Calgary is always going to be tough to play, especially at home. Edmonton at home, I mean, you look at it, you look at the roster. I know Kilgore was starting, but with Trevor Harrison there, you think it is the more likely game that you're able to win.
Yep.
And I think Kilgore in there makes it easier. And it's no disrespect to Logan Kilgore, but he hasn't started a whole hell of a lot of games, hasn't played in a whole hell of a lot of games. So, I mean, Dane Evans, I know, young, got the starting job due to injury. He has shown that he can be a starting quarterback in this league. Granted, he has a great team around him.
Yeah,
and
he
does. For them to come in and get 2 out of a possible 4 points in these 2 weeks is huge. They clinch a playoff spot this weekend. They remain ahead of they keep pace is a weird way to put it because they are ahead of Montreal, but Montreal won their game as well, so they keep the distance. It was a huge week for Hamilton to come in, and you figured Edmonton and the crowd would be on a high because of it being Ricky Ray night, but Hamilton was able to quiet that crowd real quick, real early, and stay out in front. And granted, the second half didn't quite play out like they wanted it to. I mean, you go up 21-0 and you only score 9 points after that. Not ideal. But they get out of there with a win, which is huge. Especially in that East Division. Well, the top 2 spots in the East Division are going to be highly contested the rest of the way.
Well, now the Tiger Cats have clinched a playoff spot. So have the Bombers, and so have the Stampeders. Tickets
and by clinching a playoff spot, it basically means they've clinched a home playoff berth because Ottawa's not catching them.
Yeah, it'll be even tough for Montreal to catch them at this point. They're 6 points back with a game in hand. The Ticats do have five games to go the rest of the year, but they're going on sale for season ticket holders today. I believe the general public on Thursday. They might be able to sell this West Final out, or East Final, or whatever it's going to be in Hamilton by October. That might be a record. And now they sell those new social tickets in the end zone. So Labor Day had more people there than they've ever had at Tim Hortons Field. I think this home playoff game might set a new record for Tim Hortons Field, and good for what they're doing in Hamilton. They should be excited about their team. They're a fun team to watch, and they are back in having a home playoff game. I do want to talk about Logan Kilgore. The toughest throw to make in the CFL is those wide out throws.
Weird that you bring that up on Ricky Ray night.
If you do not have the arm strength of a Henry Burris, you need to throw the ball before the receiver even thinks about looking at the ball, and
before he's break.
And the Tiger Cats could have had a lot more than 3 interceptions because there were some that they dropped or couldn't quite get to on those throws. Kilgore is going to learn the timing of those throws in the Canadian game as he stays in this league. We'll see if he has to make more starts, because from what the Eskimos have said, Harris has been dealing with this injury for actually a few weeks since the Eskimos played, I think, Winnipeg.
The Bombers,
That's when it all started, and they haven't said it's only going to be a one-game thing for Trevor Harris.
It's day-to-day. So
none of it's been clear.
Which is par for the course in the CFL, right? We're not going to get any more than that waiting for depth charts to come out to wait to see who's named starter.
Here's the thing. DeVaris Daniels had double-digit targets. He's been having that with Trevor Harris. He caught 2 of them. Thankfully, if you did pick him, one of them was a touchdown. He only had 19 yards on the day. If that's Trevor Harris, he's 8 of 10.
I took Ricky Collins, so it was even worse.
4 catches for 21 yards. You can't trust an Eskimos receiver with Logan Kilgore at the helm. CJ Gable was the leading receiver with 52 yards. I thought they would have run the ball with him more. He had 11 carries. I know that's all right, having 11 carries for 45 yards. He had to run some hard. He had some hard carries to get those 45 yards with that Ticats defensive line. I thought that they would just give him like 20, like we saw with Moses Madu in Ottawa early this season. And I know some Eskimo fans would like to see Gable get the ball some more, but they need to get that going if Logan Kilgore is going to start any more games here. As for Hamilton...
And it takes pressure off a young quarterback if you can establish a running game.
Absolutely. As for Hamilton, Marcus Tucker has 54 yards. Brandon Banks, 72 and a touchdown. Ackland had 51. Addison had 126 4 catches. I mean, this is without Luke Tasker. They have depth in that receiving core in the Hammer.
Mm-hmm. And if Luke Tasker comes back, that team gets even better.
Yeah.
Braylon Addison and Dane Evans, and we've talked about it because they were both not starting. They had the chemistry being on that second team. Now they're both starting, and it's showing. But I mean, they're not overwhelming. There was no overwhelming receiver with targets this week. I mean, Dane Evans really spread the ball around.
He did, yep.
Which makes it even harder on a defense because you can't just stick your number one corner on the number one receiver. It's not going to work out well when they're spreading the ball around like this. And Dane Evans only threw 8 incompletions, and one of them was an interception.
Braylon Addison was actually the Ticats' leading rusher, too.
Yeah, 4 carries for 29 yards. He ended up with 25.5 points. He was the leading fantasy guy for the Tiger Cats, including the quarterback.
They need to figure this out, and Calgary needs to really figure it out, too, because Calgary had a lead. I know if Toronto makes a stop there on the fourth quarter after they kicked it deep, things get really interesting. Things got really interesting here because Hamilton doesn't have a reliable running game.
I went to bed.
They don't have a reliable running game.
No, and if you have a lead, you have to be able to run the football.
Yeah.
To kill the clock.
I wonder if Sutton could be starting for the Ticats as soon as next week.
I don't see how it could hurt.
I mean, they'd have to change the ratio. That's the only thing. But, I mean, I think Sutton was one of the most underrated running backs in BC last fall. Going into the playoffs, he made an impact on that team. I think he could do the same for the Ticats as we get ready for the playoffs.
Too bad he couldn't make an impact in Hamilton in the playoff game. Mind you, nobody on that BC roster made an impact.
Wally's last game ends like that. I will say about this game, I was actually really disappointed about the attendance. It was announced at 25,694. Edmonton is one of the great cities of the CFL, and I guess I just thought with Ricky Ray being in town that the fans would come out to see that plaque on the Wall of Honor unveiled. I know that the free kids tickets are gone, maybe until next season. So that takes people out of the stands. And I know the Oilers had a preseason game,
which they won 6-2. Not a big deal.
Man, Ricky Ray night, and that's what happens. It was a beautiful night, 16 degrees, a little bit of a chilly wind, but
I mean, might be the last nice weekend of the year as we roll into the end of September now.
It could be. Yeah.
I mean, the last chance to maybe if you have a lake property or anything, last chance to get up there, get finishing touches before the weather turns and it's too late. So I could see that. Kids back in school now too. I mean, it might have something to do with it. I know it was a Friday night game. It's not like they're not doing Thursday night games anymore. But, I mean, everybody gets pretty busy this time of year. So I get it. But, yeah, 25,000, I expected it to be a little higher than that and a little more raucous. But, I mean, Hamilton took the crowd out of it real early and really quick.
I know that they've lost 4 in a row in football. That feels like an eternity.
That's a month.
And they didn't have their starting
5 weeks. They had a bye, did they not?
And they didn't have their starting quarterback, so that hurts attendance too. But the whole Ricky Ray thing was awesome. Seeing him get emotional is something new that CFL fans aren't used to seeing. I remember when Ricky would throw an interception, some fans would be infuriated because they'd be like, does this guy not care? It's like the best quarterbacks have the shortest memories, and as soon as he threw a pick or whatever, it was gone.
Look at Brett Favre.
Yeah.
He holds the record for most interceptions. You don't throw the most interceptions by just, being scared. I threw one, forget about it, go out there and you don't change your game. You play the same way. If you make another mistake, so what? You have the rest of the game to fix it. take your chin strap off angrily. But I mean, what do you want him to do? Get super emotional, let it get in his head, and then what? Throw 4 more that night?
Yeah, exactly. Ricky is maybe the best clutch quarterback of all time. Undoubtedly the best touch pass we've ever seen in the Canadian Football League. And
2 Grey Cups with 2 teams.
Yeah, the only starter to win 4 of them. To see him on that wall of honor in Edmonton was very cool. I guess I just thought he was one of the most beloved players in the last 2 decades in green and gold, and I just thought there'd be 35,000, 40,000 there. Just a bit surprising, I will say, about the attendance at Commonwealth Stadium. But I was there, and it's really cool to hear his speech, and I'll leave it at that. This episode of Tune Out is brought to you by, LitFest is the original non-fiction festival happening in Edmonton in the middle of October. It's 10 days long. But LitFest this year is presenting Author Pods. This is really cool. A series of live shows and discussions at the intersection of writing and podcasting. It runs from October 2nd to 5th in Edmonton. Now, there are a lot of shows going on. I've listened to The Secret Life of Canada with Phelan Johnson and Leah Simone Bowen from CBC Podcasts. They're going to be doing a live show with Chris from Let's Find Out, a part of the Alberta Podcast Network. So there's also going to be some true crime podcasts happening October 5th live in Edmonton. True crime is like the ultimate thing right now, whether it's Netflix
it's the new zombie TV show or movie.
Oh, man. Whether it's Netflix documentaries or podcasts, they're everywhere. They're having a true crime showdown October 5th in Edmonton. If you want all of the details on this, go to litfestalberta.org. The schedule for Author Pods is up there. If you're in Edmonton, this is going to be a blast. And if you use the promo code APNROCKS19, you're going to save $5 on your ticket. APNROCKS19 to save $5 off of your ticket. Go to litfestalberta.org for all the information on Author Pods. Now, speaking of live shows, Tune Out Live is back.
Great segue. Great segue.
November 21st, the Thursday of Grey Cup week at Booker's Barbecue Grill and Crab Shack. I cannot wait for this.
Is this officially like second annual, or is it just the second?
I'm going to say second. If it happens next year, then we'll call it annual.
What's the 3rd anniversary present?
What is that? Let me look that up.
My mom would know.
What's the second?
That's a great question. I think the first is paper.
Okay. I'm Googling this right now. This is just great podcast listening.
This is great podcasting. Yeah, I was going to say we came in super prepared on a Sunday night.
Oh, cotton.
Oh, so T-shirts.
So Tune Out cotton T-shirts. Okay, let's talk about this live show at Booker's Barbecue Grill and Crab Shack, November 21st. Tickets went on sale on Friday. So if you go to our Twitter account or our Facebook page, you will see the link to get tickets there. There's actually an event page on Facebook. I'm going to get this up on the website, tuneout.ca. Make sure you grab your tickets for this, because this one actually could sell out. Tyrell's mom is trying to get every single person she knows to the show. And if it sells out, I mean, it sells out. Tickets are $15, but that ticket includes your first beer or whatever you want to drink and a donation to CFL Fans Fight Cancer. Their meet and greet is happening on the Saturday of Grey Cup, raising money for Wellspring Calgary. But Tune Out Live, November 21st, Booker's Barbecue Grill and Crab Shack. Grab your tickets today. We'll get you the ticket link. It's up on Eventbrite, but tuneout.ca. And actually, Booker's was on You Gotta Eat Here, that show on the Food Network with John Catucci. Love that show, so you know there's amazing food at Booker's. We're all about food on Tune Out. We're going to have an absolute blast at this live show. Are you getting a bit nervous about your mom showing up to this thing and being an onstage guest, possibly?
The possibly is it's official. She said she'd do it, so that's great.
Here's a question: are you going to show up?
Well, we'll see what happens. If I come in Wednesday night, Thursday might end up being pretty rough. But I've been looking into a couple of things, and there might be party favors involved for those in attendance.
Okay.
Depending on cost and availability and so forth and so on. And we also posted a poll on Twitter. It's going to run for a week because I don't know how often people actually check our account. I wouldn't if I was you. But we have been discussing it for a little while, and then I finally pulled the trigger today and asked you about it. T-shirts, we're looking to see if there's any interest, what you guys would want for color, design, and stuff like that. So there is 2 polls up on our Twitter page. You can find them there. Vote. Give us an idea, and if you do vote yes and want more info, you can always fire us off a DM as well.
Awesome. Let's talk about third game of the week, and it was the game of the week. The Montreal Alouettes beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers 38-37. Okay, here was my Saturday. I sang "O Canada." I went to my nephew's first birthday party. They actually had the game on there. So I watched the game until halftime, 34-10, and then I went to Edmonton to go to WWE. I look at my phone. I see that the Alouettes won this by a point. 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. This is not your older brother's Montreal Alouettes.
Older brothers, yeah. Well, I mean, your brother's so much older than you. Like, his Alouettes are the Anthony Calvillo Alouettes.
Yeah. So it's not your, I don't know what it is, but this isn't the Montreal Alouettes that have become the punchline for so many jokes over the last few years.
We'll talk about the punchline in the next game, but
yeah,
because we know what I'm going to bring up in the next game.
I know you are, and you threw me into your tweet. Come on.
Oh yeah, because you totally thought Dom Davis was ready to be a starter.
I'm innocent in this.
Don't you put that hate on me, Ricky Bobby.
Let's start with the first half, where I texted you and said Chris Streveler is a fantasy god.
Which you then followed up with, I am a fantasy god.
And I am a fantasy god. We will get to that.
Pump the brakes. Pride is a sin, Travis.
Chris Streveler led this game in rushing, 84 yards, 3 touchdowns, 9 carries. That's not really a surprise. Honestly, no. In the first half, the Alouettes looked like they hadn't seen Streveler play.
They looked like they hadn't played football.
Yeah. I mean, when you see the Bombers lining up for 3rd and short, and Streveler just runs around the corner and gets a 38-yard touchdown untouched, that's not rocket science. It's not something that the Bombers haven't done before. You have to expect it.
That when they're going to line up 3rd and short, I come to accept the fact I'm not going to stop them for the most part. I would rather make him dive for 2 yards in the first down, seal the edges, give up the inside. He's not going to break something big because he's just going to be pushing. Then let him get outside the tackles and get 30, 40 yards. Like you got to play the lesser of two evils here.
Now, it's always tempting to take your quarterback's number one target when you're building a fantasy lineup. With Streveler, you do not have to.
You just he is his favorite target.
When they get to the red zone, there's a good chance that he's scoring that touchdown.
Yes.
Andrew Harris was the Bombers' leading receiver, 112 yards receiving, 76 on the ground, but 74 of those receiving yards came from the arm of Darvin Adams.
Yep.
What a beautiful throw. And that play was bizarre.
He might throw the ball a little better than Chris Streveler.
You know what? They should just keep Darvin and Strevler in the backfield. If it's a running play, let Strevler do what he does.
That'd be one way to do it.
It was such a bizarre play because I'm at the birthday party and we're basically watching the game on mute. And I was like, what are the Alouettes doing there? Apparently, a fan in the stands blew a whistle. So Tommy Campbell thought he heard a whistle, basically gave up on the play. Mm-hmm. I guess that fan was ejected. But,
rightfully so.
But, man, I mean, Harris was tackled at the 1. I mean, you got to finish that play. I know it's really confusing if you thought you've heard a whistle, but Harris isn't giving up. But
if you hear a whistle and you think it's the referees,
you could get a whistle, 15 yards on it.
A whistle is a pretty distinct sound.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're taking down Andrew Harris 2 or 3 seconds after that whistle. If it is the referee's whistle, you're in a world of trouble.
Oh, yeah.
So I get it. And I don't know if the right way to handle it is to just nullify that play because of the whistle or to let it. I don't think they can do that. That would have to be. We would have. If this would happen before the Ambrose interview, we would have had another question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Stuff like this has happened before, and we saw it a couple years ago in Hamilton where, people did blame the Box J boys, but we still don't know who had the whistle, but Andre Proulx called them out.
Yeah.
And, when you hear a whistle, you're taught to play to the whistle. So you hear it, you have to stop because you don't want to incur a penalty. But it's just a crappy situation when it ends up being from the stands. And I don't know if there's a way to rectify it in-game other than, just replaying the down. But I know they didn't. But I mean, that would be the only thing I could think to do. But that would have to be in the rules and collectively bargained and all that crap too. So right now, I guess it was done the way it's supposed to be done.
The Owls defense did a better job in the second half. Basically, to beat Strevler, you have to force him to pass. Make him beat you through the air. He did that against the Riders, I think, on Banjo Bowl. He does have what it takes, but I'd rather take my chances with Strevler throwing the ball than running it. Yeah.
He threw 3 incompletions.
Yeah.
Well, two incompletions and 1 interception.
Yeah. As for the Alouettes, nothing really got going. And they were down 3 touchdowns late in this game. And the Bombers had every opportunity to finish it off.
I'll give you the exact time.
Well,
they started
I can tell you about
their fourth last drive.
I can tell you about 5 times they could have finished it off. They missed an extra point in the first half. Medlock missed a 53-yard field goal. They ended up picking off Vernon Adams in the second half. Couldn't really do anything with it. There were some dropped interceptions. They had the Alouettes at third down in the fourth quarter. Couldn't make the stop there either. There were so many opportunities. I know hindsight is 20/20, and you can't really think that way. But the Bombers just could not finish off the Alouettes here. And this is not the way the Alouettes have been in the past. There was... They made long drives happen, too. It wasn't just they were getting lucky field position. They had a 98-yard scoring drive at one point. Winnipeg made them work, and Montreal had no running game in this one. Stanback had 38 yards rushing, and that was it. That was really it. Chris Matthews, 2 touchdowns. Jake Weineke, the winning touchdown at the end of the game. Devere Posey, 132 yards. He had himself a touchdown. That fourth quarter from the Alouettes was unbelievable. They needed about 50 things to go right, and they all went right.
So they come into that fourth quarter. They are down 27-17. 37-17. They are down 20 points.
Yeah.
They scored 21. Winnipeg, yeah, they didn't close them out on offense. They did not make plays on defense. I know they had an interception. I believe Heck had an interception in that fourth quarter, did he not? Yeah, so Heck had the interception on the third last drive, but other than that, they weren't able to stop Montreal.
No.
And as a defense, I know it's hard, especially as a defensive coordinator, you don't want to get beat, which in turn gets you beat because you're playing too safe. You cannot change a game plan when you're leading because you want to prevent teams from scoring. Prevent defense prevents winning is what it does. You still have to send pressure. You still have to bump receivers. You still have to play the same way you've been playing the whole game. Because if you change something and an offense is able to adjust, it can hurt you like that, and you give up 21 points in a quarter.
Vernon Adams threw for 488 yards, 4 touchdowns. He rushed for a touchdown, an absolute fantasy monster. With this game, he enters the most outstanding player category. If he has games like this, to wrap it up, it might be Vernon Adams Jr. on that podium at the end of the season. But on the one interception he threw, there was an incident where Adam Bighill went to block him on the interception return. Vernon Adams looked like he instantly took offense to it, ripped Bighill's helmet off, and then appeared to swing that helmet at Adam Bighill.
And made contact.
No flag on the play, which I don't know if the refs didn't see it, but there was a ref 5 yards away.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ejection worthy to me, man, and then the whole comeback doesn't even happen. I think the Bombers have a case to be very angry.
To me, that is 40 yards in penalties.
Yeah.
Personal foul for the face mask. The 25-yard for, I don't know even what the call would be, but it would be a disqualification. And you're right, I don't think Matthew Schultz or Antonio Pipkin comes in and leads this comeback. A fine is not enough. He has to be suspended.
I think he's only getting a fine. That's my prediction.
Which is an absolute joke if it happens like that, because he could, imagine if he cracks Bighill on the side of the head. And not just a glancing blow. He could have knocked Bighill out for the year.
Yep. Career.
Right? So if we're going to suspend, and I know it's a CBA thing, if we're going to suspend Andrew Harris 2 games for PEDs, and I know this isn't a PED situation, and
this
whatever,
is a lot more
if
dangerous.
That's going to be that punishment. If you're going to take a helmet becomes a weapon and you're going to use it as such, that's got to be pretty serious. And a fine is, if it's a fine, I don't get it. Because he wasn't ejected, there has to be a suspension. If he was ejected, then the suspension could be lower,
right?
And a fine or whatever. But because there was no penalty, no ejection, he has to be suspended. And number of games, I don't know, but it's got to be more than one.
Something's going to happen. We're probably not going to know about it right away. Hey, we might know on Monday.
We might not know what the actual penalty is going to be until late
Wednesday.
October after the appeal processes are done.
Yeah, that's true. Get the tinfoil hats on there, owned by the league. I mean, if he gets suspended...
If anything, the league might give him money.
If he gets suspended, we've got Vernon Adams against Andrew Harris for MOP.
Who do you vote for?
I have zero clue, but these two teams do play in Winnipeg before the end of the year.
Which should be real good.
It could be ugly or fun to watch. Depending on how you look at it.
Speaking of those two players, Danny Austin on Twitter today made a really good point that Andrew Harris has to be on the ballot. You let the voters decide whether or not he's worthy of winning MOP. You can't take him off of the ballot.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, you look at So if let's say that Vernon Adams comes out of the East and Andrew Harris comes out of the West, who do you vote for if you had a vote? We're going to ask the hard-hitting questions here.
Well, the Bombers went 1-1 without Harris. Where are the Alouettes if Vernon Adams is in their QB?
It is not an MVP award. It is most outstanding. Two completely different things.
Yeah. I think Harris.
Right now, that's where I would lean. But I think if Vernon Adams, gets a couple more 300-yard games and they keep winning football games, then my vote would be Vernon Adams.
Yeah.
Especially if Harris doesn't get to, a considerable... I know 1,000 yards rushing is a big deal, but he's got to do something considerable through the air, too, because if he's just going to keep getting 1,000-yard seasons, it's been done.
Well, if he has a couple more 100-yard receiving games, things are going to get really interesting.
Yes.
I can't wait till these two teams play again. One thing I do want to mention about this game, Kenny Lawler had a quiet game.
I do have something to add when you're done.
Two catches for 31 yards. Mm-hmm. But I got a tweet from Cindy today. The Bombers had their fan day on Sunday, and she met Kenny the King Lawler and actually asked him if she knew how I refer to him on this podcast. Well, Kenny the King Lawler knows that is now his nickname. I asked Cindy if he liked it. She said he does. He smiled. He laughed. I think the Bomber store, they need to start selling King's Court shirts. There needs to be a section at IG Field in the end zone where all
Seattle has for Felix Hernandez.
Yes, all you serve is grapes and turkey legs, and you have people. The ushers have giant fern leaves that they cool the fans off with.
Everybody wears togas.
They need a toga party night at the Rum Hut for Kenny the King Lawler. That's
okay. So if they make shirts, where are the royalties? Because I'm pretty Dave Dickinson's getting screwed.
Yeah, on the Canadian Mafia.
Out of the royalties from the Canadian Mafia T-shirts.
Oh, royalties on Kenny the King Lawler? He gets all of them.
You better... Okay. We have the Pick'em group.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring him up again because we're going to talk about Winnipeg. Neely.
He's unbelievable.
He was on a 14-game winning streak coming in to this game. And because he made me walk around Regina in cowboy boots for 3 miles looking for a Burger King that wasn't open, karma bit him in the ass. Winnipeg not only loses, he loses his streak. So suck it, Neely. But I don't hold grudges.
What a game. I can't wait until these two teams play again. The final game of the week, I think just going to do bullet form
game in
here.
Quotations.
Yeah, the Lions
more of a practice.
Destroy the Red Blacks. I think just go general here. The Lions win 40-7. Let's start with Ottawa. They had 13 drives. I'm going to read to you how every drive ended, okay?
Can I guess?
Okay. The first drive, they actually had 10 plays for 68 yards. That would be their best drive of the game. But it ended...
And then they... Turnover on downs.
Turnover on downs. Punt. 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 Interception. Field goal.
Which, hey, let's be honest here. The interception is the best end to a drive they've had up to this point.
Field goal. Missed field goal.
No. Yeah.
Interception. Punt. Turnover on downs.
Who was their quarterback? Tino Sunseri?
And then the Bronx cheer from our nation on a punt single. Oh, I don't care if there were 10 fans at TD Place by the end of that game. Slow clap for everyone that continues to come out and support that, because the Red Blacks are worse than they were in 2014, their first year in the league.
At least Trevor Harris got field goals to end drives.
Like, is Marcel Desjardins too good of a GM that they lost everyone to other teams?
Explain.
I don't know what the Red Blacks
too
do.
Frugal?
But here's the thing. Look who won free agency this year. BC and Edmonton. Where are they?
The bottom.
I mean, they're better than Ottawa, I guess.
Well, I mean, who isn't right now?
Even
Miami Dolphins might be better.
I don't know about that. So, Jonathan Jennings, 8 of 17, 121 yards and an interception. Will Arndt, 6 of 11, 61 and an INT.
The fact that I had to pick between him and Will Arndt as to who to put on the prep sheet, and it had to be John Jennings because he led the way with 3.4 points, lets you know just how bad the situation is in Ottawa.
That's about it for them. Both GMs were actually on the sidelines for this game. I don't know if that's good or bad. I think it might be good for BC, bad for Ottawa. Mike Riley.
Hey, 2 wins in a row. BC's turning it around.
Oh, baby, here they come. They actually have Edmonton Thanksgiving, too. Things could get interesting.
I like it.
21 of 27 for Mike Riley, 353 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. But Duron Carter, 1 for 1, 67 yards passing and a touchdown. So he loses to Darvin Adams on the yardage, but he gets the touchdown. Brazilian Ty, I ask you, who's the better quarterback?
Darvin Adams.
Just because on principle?
100%. And he even looked at the camera, Duron Carter, after his touchdown, and said, he's the coach. What's he doing on the field? Think about it. It's like, dude, that was like 3 years ago. Drop it. That's not the reason we all hate you. It's part of it. I mean, it doesn't help.
So there is a poll on the 2 and Out Twitter account right now. Who's the better quarterback? Duron Carter, Darvin Adams. 68 votes so far, 56% favoring my boy, Duron Carter, who also added a receiving touchdown in this game.
I'm just so glad that Brandon Rutley was put on the one game and I had to change everything up and put John White in, so I got Duron Carter out of my lineup.
So, Duron Carter's
I'll take the loss in points that I got with Lamar Durant.
Duron
I'm
Carter
okay with it.
has been a receiver, a cornerback, a quarterback. Mm-hmm. What's next?
Linebacker. So, speaking of Duron Carter being a cornerback, I know it's NFL. Antonio Brown gets released by the Patriots. Whatever, everybody knows the story by now. In our group chat that I have with some mutual friends of ours, it was brought up that, the Browns could sign him and add to their ever-expanding, I don't know what you would call it, or like their receiving core with Odell Beckham Jr. and Jefferson and all this. And it was brought up, yeah, Chris Jones would sign him. I'm like, yeah, does Cleveland need another corner? Which got rave reviews in the group chat. So I just like to point out that we are funny, and that guy can suck it.
Shaq Johnson, 160 yards and a touchdown. Welcome to 2019, buddy. I think a lot of people thought that Shaq Johnson was going to have a breakout season. Maybe this is the game that gets him going. He was on the other end of that touchdown pass from Duron Carter. Brian Burnham continues to be probably the hottest receiver in the league, other than Reggie Bagleton before this week when he missed 9 catches. That makes it, let me think here, 18 plus 8 is 26 catches in the last 3 games. Added a touchdown there. It was a big part of my fantasy team. Just one more thing. I'll add 2 more things about this game. John White looked explosive. Had a rushing touchdown, 80 yards on the ground, 17 carries. Odell Willis finally gets to 100 sacks. He had been stuck on 99 for a really long time, and he finally gets there. He had moments with his general manager, his quarterback, his coach. He was emotional on the sideline. One of my favorite players to ever play in the CFL. I love the personality. I think the league needs more people like Odell Willis. I know you'll say what you will about the hits on quarterbacks and things like that, but I do love Odell Willis as a player. I've met him a few times. I actually met Mike Riley and Odell Willis in a hotel lobby at the Grey Cup in Edmonton last year. We took a picture with Mike Riley with Odell Willis holding the cell phone. It was one of the coolest Grey Cup moments I have ever been a part of. So I'm glad he made it to 100. And maybe he was just stuck on 99. Just watch him go off the rest of the season. But he's the 12th player to have 100 sacks. And right now, I've said it before, we're watching John Bowman, Charleston Hughes, and Odell Willis, 3 of the best D linemen to ever play in the CFL, and they're all in the league right now.
And it's so fun to watch defensive players that can dominate games like that.
Oh, yeah.
I know offense sells tickets and draws viewers, but when you got a guy that can literally get to the quarterback, almost seems at will sometimes with some of these guys, and can do it consistently and disrupt plays, don't forget Willie Jefferson.
Yeah.
Too, he's on that list. Like this generation we have playing right now, and I know John Bowman is probably part of a different generation. If we're going to look at him and Charleston Hughes are on the other side of 30.
Yep.
But the way that these guys are playing right now it's so much fun to watch.
Let's talk about our fantasy lineups from this past week where
me. That's what you sound like.
Yeah, when I texted you and I told my wife I was running around all day, I am a fantasy god. She was not happy with me at all.
Weird. When is she happy with you?
She actually had herself... She actually had herself a good lineup, too, with Dane Evans, John White, Eric Rogers, Braylon Addison. But I had the top score in CFL Fantasy on the entire website. I don't think it wins me anything, but it is really cool to be number 1 overall. So I'm just going to go through my lineup. You did the math on the best possible lineup you could get under $40,000 on the website. I think I got it right. Okay, I fell 10 points of the lineup that you came up with, but I had 148 fantasy points, which is actually only 4 points more than a lineup I had in July. But I'm pretty sure the top scorer then had like 170 or 180 or something like that. I had Chris Strevler, 35.6, Andrew Harris, 23.8, Christian Jones, 10.8.
The fact that Christian Jones got you 10.8 points is an absolute travesty.
Well, he actually could have had about 17. He had a 90-yard missed field goal return. The Eskimos would have had their first kick return in how many years? And he getting double-digit points just showed that anything I did this week, it was so lucky. Brian Burnham, 28.5 points. Josh Huff had 11.9 points for the Stampeders. He actually had some costly drops. Could have had a bigger game for the Stamps. And Jake Weineke, 27.4 points. 2/3 of those kind of came on the last drive for the Alouettes. And I took the BC defense, who also had 10 points. It was incredible. I am now tied for first place in the Canadian Football Podcast Network Fantasy Challenge. I did beat Andrew from the
has the
Eskimo Empire
tiebreaker on
podcast.
you, and I called out the commissioner on it, and you're actually in second.
I'm still tied for first.
Record-wise, but you don't have the tiebreaker.
Whatever. But he crushed me earlier in the season by 55, and I actually had a shot.
You had a shot at the tiebreaker, which is amazing.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not going to beat him, but if I win, I'm not going to beat him by 60. I think I might have got by him by about 40. But let's face it, if you average, the guy in first on the website right now, he has just over 1,600 points. If you average basically an even 100 every week, you have a shot at winning this whole thing and winning a trip to the Grey Cup at the end of it all.
And if you win a trip to the Grey Cup, you can come to 2-0 live.
Yeah, who wouldn't do that?
Right?
So what was the perfect lineup?
This is what I came up with. There might be another I don't know. But you could get Vernon Adams Jr., John White, Terry Williams, Brian Burnham, Jake Weineke, Marcus Tucker, and the Lions defense, and be $50 under the salary cap, and it gets you 158 points.
Wow. So I was 10 off of that, and I actually only had, I had two of those players, right? Brian Burnham and Jake Weineke.
Yes, and the Lions defense.
Yeah, and the Lions defense. Now I get my sure thing at quarterback, a sure thing at running back, a sure thing at receiver, which I know sounds obvious, and then the rest are just lottery tickets, and you hope that they hit. Because now players are getting so expensive that it's getting pretty tough to build a lineup.
Remember when Vernon Adams Jr. was like $6,000 and we thought it was ridiculous?
I know.
It was the best. It was the best of times. It was also the worst of times.
Those were the days.
Easy there, eat it.
We are a part of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. I want you to check out the Mess Hall podcast with Avery Cochran, who talks to a ton of interesting people, and it's basically all about food. Actually, this month he did 2 episodes reviewing interesting flavors of potato chips.
I'm listening.
Which is awesome.
You know what my favorite potato chips are?
What's that?
The next one.
Oh, I like that. So I know we talk a lot about food on this show, but that's what he talks about, like all he talks about. So check out the Mess Hall podcast, all the other great shows at albertapodcastnetwork.com, and get your Week 16 tickets at SeatGiant.ca, a ticket website that's Canadian-owned and operated. All the events are listed on Canadian dollars, even if the event is in the States. SeatGiant.ca. NHL hockey is getting underway. The CFL playoff run, the road to the Grey Cup's going to start. Well, it is already started. You can grab your tickets at SeatGiant.ca, and using the offer code APN, you're going to save 5%, and you're going to support the network in the process. SeatGiant.ca. Use promo code APN. 2 and Out Live is coming up November 21st. Booker's Barbecue Grill and Crab Shack. There will be a brisket eating competition. I will be taking on Fallon from Booker's, who is actually a certified barbecue judge. I think she might crush me like a grape. And I want to see her just chow down on this brisket. There could be the rematch between Zach Evans and myself. I'm flying really, really confident here. Brazilian Ty, what's the betting line set at right now?
So, if I am correct, we are going by total eaten in an amount of time.
Yes, I believe we're going to weigh the amount that is being eaten at the end of it all.
The line opened up at Zach. If it is Zach Evans, I mean, the line could come off the board. Right, because, I mean, it could be just you and Fallon. But the line opened at Zach minus 4.5 ounces. We've had some action. There's about 120 jelly beans put on you at plus 4.5 ounces. However, it hasn't been enough to move the line yet.
Okay, we need to put a line on Fallon here.
See, but that's an unknown. Like, I think she'd be a huge underdog.
Well, then maybe people will put a ton of jelly beans down on her and win a ton of jelly beans.
Who's buying all these jelly beans to bankroll this?
I will hit the bulk barn, and we will place bets.
If you're hitting the bulk barn, you better be picking up some green dino sours, because let's be honest, those are the only ones worth their weight.
I will actually go there and we're going to have a jelly bean jar at 2 and Out Live. Guess how many jelly beans are in this jar to win it at the end of the night. That's happening right now.
We're going to have so much stuff to give away.
Tickets for 2 and Out Live, if you're still with us, are $15 at Booker's Barbecue Grill and Crab Shack, November 21st, eventbrite.ca. The tickets are there. I'm going to post them at 2andout.ca. Your ticket includes your first beer, a donation to CFL fans fight cancer, and we do want to give away a pair of tickets right now. So if you leave us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, and if you've already left a review, 5-star review, just send us a screenshot of that, and you want to go to the show. We're going to do a draw next Monday for a pair of tickets to 2 and Out Live. Leave us a review, and we will choose one of you to get a pair of tickets to 2 and Out Live in November in Calgary. This show's coming together. Tickets are moving. I know people are already buying them. I mean, if Brazilian Ty's mom is going to be there with her guest list in tow, it might be sold out by the end of the week. I'm just saying.
If her entourage comes, the amount of comp tickets, we'll be losing money on this.
Leave us a rating, and if you've already sent one, just send us a screenshot of it, and we'll get you into the draw for a pair of tickets to 2 and Out Live. Have yourself a good one. We will talk to you Thursday to preview the next week of CFL games.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.